Today is going to be a really fun one. We are going to be making Bulgarian pickled cabbage out of cabbages you see right here. We've got our load ready to go. And this is something that Bulgarians have been doing for as long as we can remember, around November. And it's our way of enjoying the cabbage all year round. Back in the day when there were no stores to just go to and buy, stuff like this over the winter, this is what people relied on. Now it's mainly older people who do this, but we're gonna try our hand at it and see what happens. Without further ado, let's just get going because we've got a really long day ahead of us.
Right. So, as I mentioned, we decided to try a new method this year, but I decided to show you guys the old traditional method first. This is from last year. That's why the camera is not in YouTube form. I was just filming this for myself back then. And what you see here is my grandma she's doing pretakvane of the zele, which means she's, recycling the water, taking the water out and then returning it back into the bin with the cabbages. This is called pretakane of the cabbage. So you do this because the salt that you put in, this is a mixture of salt and water with the cabbage, right? And when you put the salt falls to the bottom. So every day for 1 month, at least my grandma does it this way, you have to let the water run and stir it right back in so that the salt mixes. You don't want to take the cabbages out and mix it. You have to do it this way. Now, I've seen some new fancy articles say that when you do this process, you are actually driving more and more air into the barrel. That's actually why we had the stone on top in the beginning, to keep air out. I can see their point, but this has been done for years, generations, and it's been working perfectly great. So personally, I love this process, and you get to drink a little bit of the juice along the way. By the way, it's red because my grandma puts a little bit of beets inside. And not only is this a healthy little potion, but it is also delicious. It's so good. By the way, we're on my grandma's balcony in the city. For those of you guys who are wondering, where am I? Okay, so let's get into this new interesting method. So step 1 is we're not going to be putting the cabbages straight into the bin. We're going to be putting a giant bag and just putting the cabbage straight inside. Now, before putting the cabbage inside, you're going to have to clean it a little bit. You're going to have to be peeling those outside leaves off first, and then you're going to take a knife and kind of clean the bottom as well as the stem. It seems pretty simple, but this is actually really important because those outer leaves they're a little bit tough. They can also have a little bit of dirt on them, so you really want to make sure you clean your cabbage well. I just learned how to do fast forward and couldn't resist putting it into this video, and I couldn't resist leaving a little bit of the chipmunk voice. But in all seriousness, while we're cleaning the cabbages, let me just give you a little bit of background on this. We do this around November, some start in October, and the goal is to have this ready pretty much for Christmas and hopefully all the way throughout until the spring. Now, the way you enjoy this is you just take it out of the barrel. You you should rinse it off a little bit if it's a bit too salty, and then you can cut it up into little squares. That's what we like to do. I'll show you at the end of the video also. And we can put a little bit of red pepper on top, and it becomes a perfect meze. And meze in Bulgarian is basically something that we enjoy with rakia, which is our national drink, and it's just heavenly. In case you're wondering, okay, how many cabbages do you need to hold you for the whole winter? Well, we decided to put it was exactly 30 kilograms, and the weight is very important. I'll explain why a little bit later. For now, let's take a little closer of a look at how to clean the cabbage, especially on the stem, because what you want to do is get that stem off, and then let me show you right here. You're going to be making there she is. You're going to be making a cross, and a pretty deep one. The reason for this is you want to make sure that the salt can really absorb into the cabbage. It probably sounds like I know exactly what I'm talking about, like I've been doing this for years, but no, this is actually the first time I'm doing this. I haven't done this in America ever. I've only eaten it before, so I'm just basically relaying what I've learned so far. If I'm getting anything wrong, any Bulgarians out there, please correct me. I'd appreciate the feedback. Hey, a girl's gotta learn. I've only just become a full-blown farmer recently. Otherwise, New York City girl over here. How can I know how to do this? Well, Bulgarian New York City girl. Let's put it that way. But either way, we don't do this in New York. Now, to explain why the measurements and weight are so important. So you are essentially putting salt and water together with the cabbages, and you want to make sure you get that proportion correct, or else either the cabbage won't pickle or it's going to be extremely salty. So you really want to keep, well, you have to keep track, not want to, you really have to keep track of how much water you're putting in so you know how much salt to put in. As for the exact measurements, everyone has their own recipe. I've talked to many grandmas and grandpas, by the way. Lots of people do this. And everyone has a different answer, but what we do is 33 grams of salt per liter of water. Okay, and that is exactly what you don't want to have happen with this method. You want to make sure the water is only in your bag, because right now what happened is we got the water out of the bag and we also lost track of exactly how much water is in the bag. Not to worry, we figured it out, but be careful when you pour your water. Now, as I was watching and learning, I saw that we left a little bit of the cabbages popping out, which confused me because you really need your cabbages fully submerged. But I later understood that we did this because when we're gonna be tying the bag, and when we tie the bag, if we have too much water, it's gonna be spilling out a little bit. So we're gonna push those cabbages down, and when we tie the bag, the water ended up submerging them. I'm sure a couple of you Bulgarians out there are like, what exactly are they doing? I was really confused too at first, but that's part of this new method. So instead of pouring the salt straight into the bin like we normally would, we're actually tying the salt inside of these stockings, the correct measurement of salt inside of these stockings, and we're gonna just leave the salt in the bin so it can dissolve slowly. And this is why this method doesn't need pretakane. That's why you don't have to keep the, reflowing and filtering the water like you saw we did with my grandma. Instead, we just leave it in the bag. It was really weird to me when I saw this, but it makes sense. I guess we'll see how it's going to turn out. It's cool. As we know, though, everything comes at a price. Yeah, we won't have to pretakvame the zele all the time, but we will have a really hard time tying this bag, believe it or not. We spent a really long time making sure that no air is inside, so it's a give and a take. If you have air in here, you're going to spoil your cabbage, but I guess the reward is that you're not going to have to keep filtering that water. I'm not sure which way is better. Again, we'll just wait and see. And that's pretty much it. There is one more important step, which is in 2 days, we're gonna have to open this barrel and push down any air because the cabbages will sink over time, right? So you have to push down the bag once more and put a big stone on top to make sure that there really is no air in there. And once you're done with that, you just put the cap on and you just let, I guess, the cabbages do their thing. Oh yeah, and clean up the huge mess and feed all of those little leaves to your rabbits and your chickens who are starving and really excited right now. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. This is the final result. It looks a little bit weird, I'll admit, on camera. These pictures were taken from last year before I ever even thought about starting this YouTube channel, so I could have done a better job with flash and all that so you can really get an idea of what they look like up close. I don't have any videos, but hopefully you get the idea. It's basically a pickled cabbage that is just the perfect amount of sour and salty, and it really just makes the best meze, again, for rakia. And that's how we celebrate our Christmas and our general evenings. We have a little bit of rakia with any mezeta that we have, which in this case will be this cabbage. So thanks guys for watching. I really hope it was interesting, and maybe you guys can try making some Bulgarian cabbage at home. P.S. This is what all of Bulgaria looks like right now. even the cities. It's cabbage land.